So whenever you're ready.
You are live, love.
Thank you. Welcome to the Rocky Mountain Miracle Center. This first Sunday in August 2026. My name is Matt Ratcliff, and where we are today is in the Course in Miracles, chapter 13 of the text. In the purple covered edition, we're in chapter 13, section 1. It's called The World of Guilt. In the blue covered edition, it is exactly the same content, but it's divided into an introduction and then section 1. We're not going to get through all of this today because it is long, and I'm expecting there's going to be conversation, discussion around this. But I wanted to preview this by sharing that one of the ideas that comes out of this, but I'm going to help you connect the dots now, is the relationship between the belief in guilt and the belief in time. A Course in Miracles effectively says that sin, the idea which our teacher translates to a lack of love, or behaving lovelessly, acts of lovelessness. Sin is related to the past. Guilt is what we feel now, and fear is what we project into the future because of what we did in the past. Guilt, there's a word in here that I had to look up again, because I've read this section many times, but I've apparently not retained the word expiation. Expiation is clearly a man-made concept that basically means that I can dissolve or be released from my guilt by being punished. And the reason I fear the future is I fear being punished for what I believe I did in the past. And that's why I feel guilty right now. So the equation is past, present, future equals sin, guilt, fear. That's a loose, it's not any equation, it's an association. But what I got out of this section is that the two ideas of our ideas, humankind's ideas about the linear nature of time, like a vector from the past through the present to the future, is intimately associated with our belief in guilt, our belief in sin, guilt, and fear. And so that is a metaphysical or psychological connection that we make, even though it's operating, it seems to be operating in this world all the time, even though we're not conscious of it. I'm bringing it to your conscious attention right now because that's what he's doing here. So, chapter 13, section 1, the world of guilt. And if you're in the blue covered edition, I'm starting with the introduction to chapter 13. It begins, if you did not feel guilty, you could not attack, for condemnation is the root of attack. What does that mean? It is the judgment of one mind by another as unworthy of love and deserving of punishment. That is condemnation. But herein lies the split. And the split he's talking about is the split in our mind. But herein lies the split. For the mind that judges perceived itself as separate from the mind being judged, believing that by punishing another, it will escape punishment. In other words, I believe unconsciously I can get rid of my guilt by projecting it onto somebody else. In other words, I can earn my innocence by projecting my guilt onto somebody else. And it doesn't have to be a person right here, it could be a person in the White House. You know, it could be a person on the other side of the world. It's all the same effect. It is reinforcing the psychological fact in the realm of perception that my mind is split. I do not really believe that my mind is one with all y'all's. That I have my own separate mind, my own separate interests, and I can earn my innocence by getting rid of what I don't want. That is how projection, of course, tells us that projection makes perception. I project what I don't like out into the world, and it comes right back to mirror it to me. Gentry.
I was just gonna say real quick, sometimes it's opposite for me, where I feel guilt because of a projection I'm assuming a person's going to have on me, based on past experiences of failure.
Yeah. Well, that it's really all the same MO. It's really all the same ego game. And if I didn't believe that I was separate from all of the minds, if I actually believed that I was a mind and not a body, it would be easier to believe that my mind was joined with all other minds, including the mind of our Creator. And the point he just made here is that a mind that perceives itself as separate, that's the only way I can even believe that I can get rid of guilt by projecting it onto someone else. That is reinforcing the idea that my mind is split. And if you don't get the idea of a split mind, just think of the most basic concepts in psychology. At the very minimum, psychology divides the psyche, the mind, into conscious and unconscious. That is implying a split mind. It is far more complex than that because, of course, miracles demonstrates that the very fact that we seem to be separate bodies with separate minds and separate interests is another way that the split mind manifests. So all of this projection of guilt, in order to escape punishment, all of this is but the delusional attempt of the mind to deny itself, meaning to deny its unity with other seeming minds and with our Creator, and escape the penalty of the denial. It is not an attempt to relinquish denial, but to hold on to it. By feeling guilty and because it's so uncomfortable, projecting it out on someone or some situation else is an attempt to deny what I believe about myself and hold on to the belief in sin, guilt, and fear, not get rid of it, not let it dissolve, not let it be healed. It's reinforcing. It's like an autopilot reinforcement of the whole belief in sin, guilt, and fear. The acceptance, back that up. For it is guilt that has obscured our infinitely loving Creator to us, and it is guilt that has driven us insane. The acceptance of guilt into the mind of God's holy children was the beginning of the separation, as the acceptance, I'm going to read it directly as it's written here first, and then I'm going to translate. As the acceptance of the atonement is its end, the end of the separation. So as the acceptance of the at-one-ment is another way we can translate the word atonement, or we can translate it as the acceptance of the plan of perfect love. Early in the purple covered edition, I don't remember about the blue covered edition, a teacher defines the atonement as perfect love. Although it really is, that's an oversimplification because it's the plan. It's the infinitely loving plan to return our awareness, the infinitely loving plan of perfect love to awaken us to the reality of what we really are. So I personally like this idea of just, it's a simple way for me to remember what atonement means. Because in the Course in Miracles, it completely overlooks any idea of punishment in the word atonement. In common use in the world, atonement implies punishment. Yes, Carl?
I just had this conversation this week with a dear mentee of mine who is in recovery and has made amazing, beautiful, incredible strides in her life. And we were reflecting on some unhealthy choices she made 5 years back, right? And I asked her, I said, can you move forward from the guilt so you can receive all this exciting growth? You know, because I just gave her this laundry list of all these things. And she said, no, I can't let go of the guilt because I'm afraid then I'll do it again. And so she felt that the guilt was the punishment she needed to continue to have to keep her from making that choice again. And so it's very hard to help her understand that actually when you let go of the guilt, you'll experience it more. But for her, that was the punishment she had to keep so that she would never do it again.
Well, that is a perfectly consistent ego strategy.
Yes.
If I really knew and accepted who I was, I would know that I was innocent and that guilt was actually impossible. I would also know that my mind is not split and I can't get rid of any belief in guilt by projecting it onto someone else or holding it for myself as a means of earning my way into heaven, or preventing me from repeating some behavior that I believe was less than loving in repeating that again in the future. That is perfectly logical ego strategy.
Well entrenched.
And absolutely well entrenched in the thinking of the world. We are being taught another way out of the darkness rather than reinforcing the darkness and going or even going deeper into it. So there was an instruction, essentially an instruction at the end. That is echoing an explicit instruction in the Course in Miracles. The sole responsibility of the miracle worker is to accept the atonement for themselves. In other words, to accept love's plan for perfect love for themselves and everyone else. The world you see is the delusional system of those made mad by guilt. Look carefully at this world, and you will realize that this is so. For the world is the symbol of punishment, and all the laws which seek to govern it are the laws of death. Children are born into it through pain and in pain. Their growth is attended by suffering, and they learn of sorrow and separation and death. Their mind seems to be trapped in their brain, and its powers decline if their bodies are hurt. They seem to love, yet they desert and are deserted. They appear to lose what they love, perhaps the most insane belief of all. And their bodies wither and gasp and are laid in the ground and are no more. Every one of them has thought that God is cruel. That is what the ego is constantly reinforcing our belief in. I know that wasn't a pretty paragraph to listen to much less or read, but our teacher, he teaches most effectively through contrast. So this is typical. He's just showed us he just basically asked us to look at the crucifixion. He was holding our hand while we looked at the crucifixion through that paragraph. And I don't know about the next paragraph because I can't remember it right now, but eventually we're going to be looking at the resurrection. We are asked over and over again to look at the crucifixion, aka the ego thought system, the way the effects of the ego thought system manifest in the world, so that we can rationally, reasonably ask ourselves if we really want to keep doing that when we have an alternative, a loving and light-based light-sourced alternative being presented to us. That is the way that his genius teaching method helps us to get past the idea of being coerced into following this course. He shows us, lays all the cards on the table, and asks us to choose once again. You want to keep doing this? Are you really happy with what the results of what you've been doing, or do you want to try something different? If this were the real world, God would be cruel. For no father could subject his children to this as the price of salvation and be loved. Love does not kill to save. We could say love does not punish to save. Punish others or punish myself. For if love did kill, attack would be salvation, and this is the ego's interpretation, not our infinitely loving creators. Only the world of guilt could demand this, for only the guilty could conceive of it. Adam's so-called sin could have touched none of us had we not believed that it was the Father who drove Adam, us, out of paradise. That's certainly what Christianity teaches. Expelled from the Garden of Eden. That he's saying that belief implies that God as holy and only loving is impossible. Obviously, the Course doesn't agree with this evaluation, this interpretation. For it is in this belief that knowledge of the Father was lost, knowledge of and the knowledge of who we are was lost, since it is only those who do not understand their infinitely loving Creator that could believe that we were cast out of paradise, out of the Garden of Eden, out of heaven, and in receivership of everything. The whole idea of loss and lack, not least the loss of innocence, that we could be guilty. Only those who don't know who and what they really are could believe that. This world, meaning the world that we see, the world of we experience day in and day out is a picture of the crucifixion of love's creation, us. And until you realize that God's creation cannot be crucified, this is the world you will continue to see. But you will not realize this until you accept the eternal fact, that infinite love's creation is not guilty. We deserve only love because we have been given only love. We cannot be condemned because we have never really been condemned. The plan of perfect love is the final lesson that we need to learn, for it teaches us that never having sinned, never having actually been or behaved lovelessly, we have no need for salvation. This is what we're told we ultimately learn. After we learn to practice forgiveness and make it such a overlearned habit that we finally realize that there was really nothing to forgive in the first place. But while we still believe that we are here, we need forgiveness to get to that point. So long ago, we said that the Holy Spirit shares the goal of all good teachers whose ultimate aim is to make themselves unnecessary by teaching their pupils all they know. And the Holy Spirit wills only this, because he's being the ultimate teacher. The Holy Spirit wills only this for sharing the Father's love for his creation. He wills to remove all guilt from our minds, that we may remember our Creator in peace. Why? Because peace and guilt are antithetical. You cannot feel guilty and have peace.
That's right.
They are mutually exclusive. Which also means that love and guilt cannot coexist, and to accept one is to deny the other. This is a literal case of either or, one or the other. And the very fact that I can feel peace and in another moment feel guilt is just another indicator that I have not yet chosen to listen to the Holy Spirit and learn the Holy Spirit's teaching exclusively. My mind is still split, sometimes listening to the ego thought system, sometimes listening to the Holy Spirit. He's telling us right here that if I'm feeling guilty, I'm listening to the ego. Can't be more simple than that. But it's really important that we learn, as this course is helping us to do, that we learn that if I'm feeling guilty, that means that I'm listening to something unloving in myself. And the next step is remembering that there is another way to look at this. And I'm being taught that I cannot be guilty. So if I'm feeling guilty, maybe I could ask for another way to look at this. Maybe I could ask to be healed from whatever is causing me to feel this guilt. And maybe that means I need to go apologize to someone for something I did. Or maybe it means I just need to give my own self a break and realize that whatever I'm feeling guilty about that I did in the past, maybe I was actually doing the best I could in that moment. give myself a little bit of grace. And give others the grace as well. Yes, Carla.
As you were talking, what was growing in my head was this image of two gods. So growing up in Christianity, one of the things that I've had to unlearn is every tradition has its own mythology about the fall, right? It's not just within Christianity, but in Christianity, even the fact that you can't trust God to keep you safe, because what loving parent puts a electrical drill in the playpen with their child, right? So what loving God actually puts a tree that could destroy you for eternity in with his children, right? But so there's that version of this God that isn't really safe and trusting and is jealous, etc. And so guilt is a choice to serve that God, right? And so it really takes learning a truth about God and a truth about myself that says, oh, no, God is not going to put a drill in my hand, in my playpen, right? And so we're serving two different concepts of God. Guilt serves the God that needs punishment to be appeased, versus the God that we're learning about in the course that is only love and only ever sees us as innocent, regardless of what we do.
Yeah. And speaking for me personally, this was the problem that I had with studying the Bible as a child. Because, it was impossible for me to articulate this when I was a child. But I could feel the cognitive dissonance, because the God that I learned about in the Old Testament seemed completely different than the God that I learned about in the New Testament in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm presented with, which one of these should I believe? So ultimately, when I was 16, I just
I don't believe.
threw it all away.
I love that. So that's why they call the New Testament the good news. And that's why A Course in Miracles is the best news.
The best news.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I've heard it referred to as the Third Testament.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking, it's in that comparison, that contrast, like God is schizophrenic, basically, like.
The belief.
He's
in
just
God
as insane as we are.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the tendency is for us to make our Creator in our own image, right?
Right,
You know?
if we are made in his image, then.
Exactly. We can, if I believe I'm guilty and separate from everybody else, then if I actually believe that there is a higher power, if I want to identify with that higher power, my concept of God is going to be in alignment with what I think about myself and the world that I live in. Thank God for the Holy Spirit to tell us otherwise. Literally. So I think in the blue covered edition, we are now in section 1. But I am going to skip the paragraph that begins with guilt hides Christ from your sight in the interest of time. So I just finished with love and guilt cannot coexist, and to accept one is to deny the other. We're going to skip the next paragraph and go to the one later in the purple covered edition. I'm moving on to paragraph 7. As you look upon yourself and judge what you do honestly, as you have been asked to do, you may be tempted to wonder how you can be guiltless. But consider this. You are not guiltless in time, but you are in eternity. You have so-called sin in the past, but there is no past. Always has no direction. Forever is now. Eternity is now. Always has no direction. Time seems to go in one direction. So here's where he begins to link the ideas of sin, guilt, and fear with our perception of time. And I can't remember where he expressly says this. I want to say it's in the workbook somewhere, but our teacher basically tells us that we need new ideas about time. And one of the goals of this course is to teach us new ideas about time. And one of the first ones we learn about in the principle of miracles is that there is more than one dimension to time. There is at least a horizontal dimension to time, the one that by default he basically says is the one we're familiar with, but that the miracle accesses a vertical dimension of time. And when we are miracle-minded and participating in initiating miracles, we enter that vertical dimension of time. And that's how we can save, as he says, literally thousands of years, aka lifetimes, by the shifts in thinking and perception that can happen by miraculous thinking. So here he is beginning to introduce or circling back to new ideas about time. Time seems to go in one direction, but when you reach its end, time will roll up like a long carpet that is spread out along the path behind you and disappear. Who knew? As long as you believe that the children of God, the holy children of God, are guilty, you will walk along this carpet, believing that it leads to death. And the journey will seem long and cruel and senseless, for so it is. But the journey which the children of God have set themselves on is foolish indeed. But the journey on which the Father, our Creator, has set us is one of joy and release. He's talking about the contrast again. And I know the contrast is sometimes very hard to believe. We're not asked to believe it, or even like this paragraph began earlier. How can I can wonder how I could possibly be guiltless. But the journey on which the Father has set us is one of joy and release. Our Father is not cruel, and his creation cannot hurt themselves. The retaliation which we fear and which we see will never touch us, for though we believe in it, the Holy Spirit knows it is not true. It's implied in what he just wrote. It's implied here, and it's articulated explicitly elsewhere, that so long as we believe in sin, guilt, and fear, in other words, as long as we are believing in the ego thought system, we're going to continue walking in this world of chaos and cruelty and darkness. But it's only our belief in those ideas that seems to make it so. We're being encouraged and taught to listen to the Holy Spirit's thought system, which leads us to what the Course calls the real world, where there is no loss, where we recognize that There is no difference between any of us, any of the creations of our infinitely loving Creator. And that everything we thought was happening was we were doing it to ourselves because we chose to believe in something that wasn't real. It's all about belief, and that's why he is here and for another time teaching us new ideas about time and trying to convince us that our belief in sin, guilt, and fear are ideas that we can simply give up if we choose to do so, if we desire something other than that. The Holy Spirit stands at the end of time where we must be because he is with us. The Holy Spirit has already undone everything unworthy of the holy children of God, for such was the Holy Spirit's mission, given to him by God, and which God gives has always been. And that which God gives has always been. Our teacher now addresses this very personally. You will see me as you learn that the holy children of God are guiltless. And I'll ask you to recall that the word see, the more general use of the word see, the more comprehensive use of the word see is about perceiving, how I understand things. It's not necessarily about what I see with the body's eyes. The idea in A Course in Miracles is that this tiny mad idea that I could be special, that I could have more than everything already, that I could be separate, which means to be different, which means that us and them, me and other, that the possibility of differences exist. Bear with me a second. I forgot where I lost the thread of where I was going. We'll come back to it. Let me carry on and we'll come back. And time is but an illusion. The Course in Miracles teaches us that the tiny mad idea was answered the instant we had it, which means that everything we are experiencing in the world is simply reviewing what has already happened and that it was done over long ago. In our experience, because we choose to believe in this idea of linear time, because we choose to believe in sin, guilt, and fear, it seems to be happening now. But the Course in Miracles assures us, even though it's frickin' hard to believe, we are merely reviewing what has already gone by. I have already accepted the truth about myself. Basically, it means that I am asleep and dreaming that all of this is happening right now. And he expressly says that it doesn't matter whether I'm asleep in bed or on the couch or wherever it is, or standing in front of you right now. This is all part of a dream. It's a series. It's like the Russian nesting dolls, dreams within dreams within dreams. which is another way of expressing the difference between illusions and reality. In capital R reality, all of this was over long ago. We have already returned to our role as co-creators with our infinitely loving creator. We're already back doing what we were intended to do. Part of our minds just doesn't know it yet. There's a tiny, tiny little part of our mind. In this case, the part of the mind, our mind that believes it's Matt in 2026, hasn't fully accepted that yet. But that's just because that part of the mind is asleep and dreaming this.
We haven't taken off our VR glasses yet.
Nice metaphor. Yes, my VR glasses are still operating. When we find our release is only a matter of time, but time is an illusion. For the children of God are guiltless now, and the brightness of our purity shines untouched forever in our infinitely loving Creator's mind. God's creation will always be as it was created. Deny your world and deny our world, the world we see right now. This is an instruction. Deny our world, the one that we see right now, and judge each other not. For our eternal guiltlessness is in the mind of our Creator and protects us forever. If only I remember that the next time somebody cuts me off.
Bless you, darling.
And I'll get you in a second, Linda. And this is starting to touch on one of the first aspects of forgiveness as the Course in Miracles teaches us. And it's as true of guilt as anything that seems to be happening to me that I don't like. The very first step in forgiveness, as the Course teaches it, is to stop making it real. In other words, stop believing that what is happening or what I'm feeling that I'm not happy about, stop making it real. Stop digging the hole, stop going deeper into darkness, stop making it real. That's the very first step, is to stop digging. And then I can make a decision whether I want to keep going or turn around. Do I want to keep going into the darkness or turn around? But the very first step is to stop making it real. Oh, sorry, Linda. Yes. Thank
This
you.
whole conversation about guilt, when I first revisited the course about a year ago, I'm so annoyed with that word.
Can you speak up just a little bit, Linda?
Okay.
Speak up a
I
little
was
bit.
annoyed with the word guilt because I don't go around in my life feeling guilty.
Mhm.
Like Carla's example of somebody who actually does feel guilty.
Right.
I don't, and I wasn't raised Catholic, so I don't have that, overriding thing that some people have. But in this last year, I realized that what it's talking about is original guilt, the tiny mad idea that created this whole illusionary world, and we feel guilty about that. But the bummer is that it's unconscious.
Exactly.
Like Carla's friend is conscious of her guilt, but that's really just kind of a tiny example of metaphysically what we're all dealing with, except Carla's friend can look at that guilt and maybe work with it.
Mhm.
We have this like eons old guilt, and that's why I talk about forgiveness a lot, which also
Mhm.
I I didn't like that word in the beginning either. And also, I think forgiveness is a weird word because in our culture, it means like, we're holier than them if we forgive. So it's kind of a weird word. But maybe there could have been a better choice of word forgiveness. But the point being, like, we've got to stop judging others so that we can release ourselves from this ancient
Exactly.
guilt.
So I'm just going to point out that he expressly didn't come up with a different word for forgiveness, because he's asking us to redefine it for ourselves. He makes it very clear that the forgiveness that the world has taught us is what the Course calls forgiveness to destroy. Another way to say that is forgiveness to separate. That I'm better than you are, so I can overlook what you did. But that is only a way of keeping. It's implicitly saying that what you did is real, but since I'm better than you, I'm going to overlook it. I'm going to give you a pass. True forgiveness, as the Course in Miracles is teaching, is so different than that. It's hard, The whole book is about teaching what true forgiveness is, but it is intentional that he is redefining guilt. He is redefining forgiveness. He is redefining, and one of the reasons he picked Christian terminology is so that he could redefine it. This is one of the ways in which it is the Third Testament, in my view. Yes, Carl.
So Kelly's waving at all of us from the mountain. They're house sitting for Annie.
Hi,
So
Kelly.
she said she loved the Russian nesting doll analogy, but then she said she had not heard the phrasing to stop making it real. This guilt, the first step is stop making it real, and that she resonated, and would love you to expand on that.
Well, I thought I did already, but
And you may have by the time she made that comment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I did already. If she and I can talk offline if she needs to hear more about that. I think right now I need to keep moving on because this is a long section. So when you have accepted the plan of perfect peace for yourself, you will realize that there is no guilt in God's creation. And only as you look upon each other as guiltless can you understand our oneness. So, in many of the spiritual communities that I circulate in, we talk about oneness a lot. He just told us that as long as I can conceive of the idea of guilt, either in myself or in somebody else, I am not actually going to be able to experience oneness. It is only the wholly innocent, holy, H-W-H-O-L-L-Y, it is only the wholly innocent that can perceive themselves, can recognize the oneness. Did you have a comment, Darlene?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about that
Speak up a little bit.
forgiveness. Yeah, forgiveness is an illusion, and that kind of makes it a little more confusing in some ways. But it's like there's nothing to forgive. There's never anything to forgive because nobody can take my good away from me, and I can't do that to someone else either. There's no victims. That whole part of the Course in Miracles is just so exciting in such a totally different way of looking at things.
Yeah. And that is corollary to where the Course ultimately leads us to, is that I'm doing this to myself. This literally is a course in ultimate responsibility. It may look like somebody's betraying me or deserting me or whatever, but the course is saying that ultimately, even though I may have conveniently forgot about it, I call this experience to myself. And that's one of the ways we can begin to forgive that, is to stop making it real that somebody's doing this to me. I may have conveniently forgotten that I call this to myself. But that's this whole thing about, gets back to this whole mechanism of, I believed I acted lovelessly in the past. I feel guilty for that in the present. And because I don't like feeling guilty about it, I project what I don't like out into the world, and I fear it coming back to me in the future. So the way to stop that cycle is to stop believing that. And one of the key things that he's teaching us to do right here is stop the whole belief in guilt. And I'm going to say one more thing about guilt that picks up on what Linda was saying. The guilt that he is referring to is often unconscious to us. This is not language from A Course in Miracles per se, but one of Gary Renard's books about A Course in Miracles. His Ascended Master teachers talk about, this is a very powerful metaphor in my opinion, the guilt that's hidden in the deep canyons of our unconscious mind. It percolates up to the surface every once in a while, so we get to experience it. Okay, let's see how we're doing on time here. I'm going to just circle back. When you have accepted the plan of perfect love for yourself, you will realize that there is no guilt in God's creation, us. And only as you look upon each other as guiltless can you understand our oneness. For the idea of guilt brings a belief of condemnation of one by another, projecting separation in place of unity. Here's the statement about radical responsibility. You can condemn only yourself. And by doing so, you cannot know that you are God's holy child. I can't know that I'm the Christ is another way to say I cannot know my oneness with my Creator or in any of my brothers. So long as I am projecting separation by condemning one another, and then because the consequence of condemning one another, it is inevitably going to lead to the experience of guilt. And he just told us that actually, when I'm projecting condemnation, accusations, attack on anybody, I'm really condemning myself. And that's why, getting back to Kelly's question, the first step in true forgiveness is to stop making it real. Because there is a part of my mind that recognizes that when I am criticizing or condemning or attacking somebody else, I'm really attacking myself. Because there is still a part of my mind that knows that we are one. You cannot know that I am God's holy child. For I have denied the condition of our being as one, which is our perfect blamelessness. Out of love, we were created, and in love, we abide. Goodness and mercy have always followed us, for we have always extended the love of our Father. But we can't recognize that so long as I believe in sin, guilt, and fear, and continue to operate as if I can earn my innocence by projecting it out onto someone else. Because I'm actually just projecting it out of my conscious mind into my unconscious mind, and it is going to act like a boomerang and come back and confront me with it. This is a course in psychology. This is a course in metaphysics. That's some of what we're learning today. This is why this is kind of hardcore, as well as the idea is I don't really want to be up here talking about guilt. I don't want to be thinking about guilt. But this is what I was called to discuss today.
Good.
I'd be perfectly happy to just continue on denying guilt and distract myself with something else. So I love this. In the purple covered edition, paragraph 11, I really love this paragraph. I don't know which paragraph it is, 11 minus 4 or 11 minus 5, whatever. As you perceive the holy companions who travel with you, and in order to do that, that means that I have to be perceiving with the aid of the Holy Spirit as my advisor, as my guide. As you perceive the holy companions who travel with you, you will realize that there is no journey, but only an awakening. We're not really learning anything. We're unlearning what we taught ourselves so that we can remember what we forgot. The holy children of God who sleepeth not have kept faith with our Father for us. There is no road to travel on and no time to travel through. For God, our infinitely loving Creator, waits not for his creation in time, being forever unwilling to be without us. And so it has always been. Let the holiness, let me just remind us that holiness means a desire, a will to join and love every living being. To not be separate. Holiness is the opposite of separation. Let the holiness of God's holy children shine away the cloud of guilt that darkens your mind. And by accepting one another's purity as your own, learn of each other that it is ours. I love that he introduced the concept here of the cloud of guilt. And we are not going to have time to get there today, but I invite you, if you want to pick up on this metaphor of the cloud of guilt, I invite you to circle back to workbook lesson 69. He goes through a really lovely meditation, guided meditation there, where we are asked to try to find the light within us. And he asks us to imagine that we're like a satellite orbiting the Earth that's orbiting the sun, and the sun is completely shrouded in clouds, and to penetrate those clouds so that we can find the light within us. It is a really, really powerful workbook lesson and powerful meditation that's included there. Workbook lesson 69. So he's now introducing another concept that the course teaches about our invulnerability. We are invulnerable because we are guiltless. And we can hold on to the past only through guilt. So there is the statement, there is a statement about the correlation of time and sin, guilt, and fear. We can hold on to the past only through guilt. For guilt establishes that you will be punished for what you have done and thus depends on one-dimensional time. That horizontal dimension of time that I mentioned earlier. Proceeding from past to future. And no one who believes this can understand what always means. And therefore, guilt must deprive you of the appreciation of eternity. So I can't be peaceful and feel guilty. I can't accept the plan for perfect love so long as I feel guilty. And I have no freaking clue what eternity is as long as I believe in guilt. That sounds to me like that is a really, really huge cost to believe in guilt. And so now I can ask myself, do I really, really want to continue paying that cost? Again, this is his genius teaching strategy, to lay it out before us so that we can recognize the price we've been paying for thinking the way we've been thinking, for believing the way we've been believing, and being shown that there is another way to believe and another outcome that we could experience. We have a reasonable, rational means to make a choice. And he understands, our teacher understands, that we're still practicing, we're still learning, we're not going to be doing this 100% of the time, we're going to be going back and forth. But it is my experience that the more I do what the course is telling me to do, the more I practice what it's teaching me, I gain confidence that what it's teaching is true and valid and useful and personally helpful to me. At least that's the way I perceive it. And it's teaching, and the effect is that as I gain confidence in listening to the guidance of the Holy Spirit, it literally is a one or the other situation. The more I'm listening to the Holy Spirit, it means I'm listening to the ego less and less, because I can't listen to both at the same time. And the reflection of that in my experience is, am I feeling peace, or am I feeling guilt, or anger, or upset, or whatever? I will just say again, this is why I'm saying this for myself as much of all of you. Paying attention to how I feel and linking those feelings with the idea that I must be listening to this advisor or another advisor based on how I feel is really, really important information to learn and put into use. Because that is one of the ways I can stop myself from digging the hole into darkness deeper. If I can stop and ask myself, do I really want to continue feeling like this? It's been a few months, but I direct your attention back to I think it's beginning of chapter 30, the rules for decision about the choice of advisor that we make in making all of our decisions. And there's another section in here that I've touched on before called guiltless decision making. Guiltless decision making happens when I'm making decisions based on Holy Spirit's guidance versus the ego's guidance. Did you have a question, Jeanette?
I've been gonna say something most of the time, the guilty, getting out of that darkness. Of course, I love to talk with you about driving, and you even said
Yes.
next time someone cuts me off. So just that shift in perspective of, instead of that person is cutting me off, that person, I allowed the space for that person to come in. I'm
Thank
so
you
glad that
again.
they
Thank
say-
you again for that shift in perception, that loving shift in perception, yes.
I allowed this space,
Mhm.
and they took that space, and it's not my space, right? I can just back up a little bit more if I want that space.
So that belief that actually I did pay for this road, it's just another ego validation.
Hopefully they also pay for it, right? Hopefully they also pay for their tax and
Yes,
registration.
yes, thank you
Mhm.
for that very, very practical example. Linda?
Just in terms of the driving thing, I kind of think of it these days as, thank you for giving me an opportunity to forgive.
Uh-huh.
Another opportunity to grow.
Yeah.
It's an easy one, right? Like, yeah, it's one of the life's easier little things.
Yep, thank you. No one who believes in guilt can understand what always means, and therefore guilt must deprive you of the appreciation of eternity. Here's another hard to believe statement, but here we go. We are immortal because we are eternal, and always must be now. Guilt, then, is a way of holding the past and the future in your mind to ensure the ego's continuity. For if what was done in the past will be punished, the ego's continuity would be guaranteed. This is why he's teaching us new ideas about time, and why I am emphasizing the relationship between sin in the past, guilt in the present, and fear of the future. The whole ego thought system is designed to prevent us from focusing on the real present. I think it was at Darlene's last week, we were having a conversation. I came up with this idea that it occurred to me that if I believe that this now moment sucks,
It does.
then I'm actually holding my attention on something that happened in the past. I'm not really in the now. And that is also serving the ego's purpose. If I'm believing that this now moment really sucks because all I'm really doing is ruminating on something I didn't like, which is already in the past, which is already gone. It doesn't exist. It's an illusion now. So the Course in Miracles teaches us that to really experience the now moment, the term it uses is the holy instant, is when I go inside and reconnect with my infinitely loving source. That is and that's what the Course means when it says now is the only time that really exists. But that's what it means. It emphatically does not mean my so-called experience of now as a sucky moment, because that's just me putting the cloak of the past over my experience of the now because I'm ruminating on something that's my interpretation, and even if it was an accurate interpretation, is already gone, is already done and gone. Yes, Carl?
So, but the same is equally true if I hold on to this as the most incredible experience of my life, right? Because I'm again trying to emotively hold it in place. This week we had a loss of a dear, precious young man in our life, and I've seen this playing out is that those that are feeling most guilt toward the relationship with him are replaying the painful conversations they've had with him of recent and losing the aspect of the beauty of in 27 years, he walked the planet. And that when we stop in the moment to just acknowledge his value, everyone's faces change, even if just for a moment, right? To, oh yeah, I do remember this feeling of him. But it's that, whatever I'm attached to, if I'm attached to a good relationship with him, if I'm attached to a bad relationship with him, I'm still going to get fixated on those past and the lost future associated with those past. Yeah. So only when I'm really willing to sit here and feel him, and all kinds of crazy, miraculous things have happened. His favorite color is pink, and pink just showed up in the most absurd places on cars, and so he's here. But we have to be present with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm encouraging you to really be honest with yourself about what now means to you. Because as I said, according to the Course in Miracles, and essentially the practice that it teaches over and over and over again. In fact, after about workbook lesson 50, almost every single lesson is leading us into an experience of this holy instant. Just build, the lessons just build on one upon one upon one. That's what being present really means. Darlene.
Yeah, I just was going to say thank you, Carla. And that's just another way that we can choose once again. That's where we have miracles. And how am I going to see this? And how will I remember him? And it's a really tricky one.
Yeah.
And when we're talking about this is a sucking moment because of something I did in the past. It's such a setup for the future. And there's only one moment, it's right now. So they're all gonna slide in together. So yeah, if I'm thinking that, whoa, what an amazing time this is.
Yes.
It is. And so it will be.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, we're going to end with this paragraph 13 in the purple covered edition. But I'm going to back up for a minute. Guilt then is the way of holding the past and the future in your mind to ensure the ego's continuity. For if what the ego has done will be punished, its continuity would be guaranteed. Underscore would be guaranteed. But the guarantee of our continuity is our infinitely loving creator, not the frickin' ego.
I have the blue book and it says the ego's continuity is guaranteed. Is it would be in the purple edition?
Yes, that was apparently an edit.
Okay.
The ego's continuity would, underscored, be guaranteed.
Thank you.
But the guarantee of our continuity is our infinitely loving creator, not the ego. And immortality is the opposite of time. For time passes away while immortality is constant. Right? Time, in our experience, passes away. Accepting the plan of perfect love teaches us what immortality is. Why? Because by actually accepting our guiltlessness, we learn that the past has never been, and so the future is needless. And just speaking for myself, in sometimes guided meditations that Anna or other lead, or when I'm really successful with experiencing the holy instant, I really don't want it. I'm enjoying that experience so much that I really don't want to come back to awareness of my body. I really. So, because in that moment, the future is needless to me. I don't want to come back to this experience of linear time again. And that is a big payoff for me when I can actually remember and be motivated to do that.
Mm-hmm.
As Anna frequently says, and we can return to this experience anytime for free.
Right.
But how often do I do it? Very rarely. Accepting the plan of perfect. I'm sorry? Is there a question? Okay. Accepting the plan of perfect peace teaches us what immortality is, for by accepting our guiltlessness, we learn the past has never been, and so the future is needless. The future in time is always associated with expiation. I'll come back to that in a minute. And only guilt could induce a sense of need for expiation. This is the word that I had to look up again, for probably the 4th or 5th time. Expiation, again, means the idea that the way to release myself from guilt is to accept some kind of punishment for what I believe that I did, for the unloving thing that I did. Again, clearly a man-made idea, a human-made idea. Actually, I'm going to stick with the idea of man-made because I'm sure it was a guy that came up with it.
Or a very mad housewife.
That clearly implies a threat, the threat of punishment. And this is completely consistent with the ego thought system. Its continuity is what he put in here, is what the way he wrote it, would be ensured, will be ensured so long as I believe in guilt, and that the way I can get rid of guilt is either to project it out onto somebody else or be punished for it. That is the way we ensure the continuity of this idea of time as a linear, one-dimensional experience from the past through the present, the vanishing present into the future, and it ensures the ego thought system of projecting the past and guilt, the belief in punishment, all of these things. That's how it persists. As long as we are willing to believe in and act according to all of those ideas, it will persist. However, accepting the guiltlessness of the holy children of God as ours is therefore our Creator's way of reminding us of our oneness as Christ. The way he wrote it here is his Son, but it means the Christ, our capital S self, and what we are in truth. For our infinitely loving Creator has never condemned his creation, and being guiltless, we are eternal. Mic drop.
Hmm.
Gentry.
I had an experience with this week. So, my car settlement is coming, and my plan is to go full-time on my life coaching business. And so I let my boss know that I work for, like, hey, I'll finish this client, and then I want to move on. But interestingly enough, I also live with her wife in her house. And so they had offered me a couple more sits coming up. And internally,
Offered you a couple.
dog sits, overnight dog sit, or have been up to this point. So they offered me more opportunities coming in September, and internally I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to keep drawing it out, but my inner people pleaser wanted to not let them down, the guilt, oh, what if, they've done all these great things for me, they really helped me out in so many ways. If I say no, is that going to have a negative ramification? Does that make me ungrateful? All these stories I was playing in my head.
Mm-hmm.
And so finally I just bit the bullet and I said, hey, can I just talk to you? Like, I love you both. I'm so grateful for you. And no. So many things were telling me, like the universe was screaming at me, no, but that internal conflict and fear of letting someone down or whatever. But she received it so well, and it actually turned into this really beautiful conversation and support of what her and I are both building in our own coaching worlds. And so it turned out so much better, right? Like I said last week, what's the best that can happen? I have to remind myself of that.
Yay!
Yes.
Thank you for that. Well done, and thank you for sharing that with all of us today.
It's scary, but it's good.
Being true to your desires, which are clearly being guided by spirit, in my opinion, in my perception, and being true to those, and then having a conversation, putting everything on the table, turned out way better than you feared. Yay! Congratulations. And thank you all for being here today and helping me learn this. Because this, obviously this is not a happy subject to talk about, but I hope you can see the payoff. I hope you can see the payoff that we don't have to keep doing it the way we've been doing it.
So Kelly actually put a very cute statement in here. Matt, you're feeling guilty about having to talk about kids. Thank you.
I'm uncomfortable talking about it. Yes.
Thank you, Matt. For those of you, did we ever find the donation basket?
No.
Our donation basket, like, took a walk, who knows where. So we'll get that started, but if you're online and you'd love to give a gift of appreciation, it's RMMC-ACIM.org donations page. But also anywhere on the walls, you'll see the QR code to pay via PayPal or Venmo, etc. So please do that. And then the next board meeting would have been next Sunday. However, next Sunday, Anna's traveling, and Matt and I and several others here in the community will be at a celebration of life for a dear friend of ours. And so we know that not everyone has gotten the word. So we want to make sure, what's the time on this? Is it 3 o'clock? Is that right?
Yeah, so this is 3 o'clock. It's a celebration of life for Patrick Hale, and who is Spirit Course in Miracles.
Yeah.
And Dear Con and Pete Nancy sends this day.
Yeah, so if Patrick Hale is in your circle of love, which he definitely is in our circle of love, and you would like more information, either send a message through Messenger here or talk to Darlene and she'll get you all the details. There is a Facebook invitation out there. But so because of that, the board has voted to move the board meeting to the 23rd of August at 2 o'clock. So it would normally be next week, it'll be out 2 weeks. And so please, I did send out rescheduling comments, et cetera, on that, but do reschedule that. We do have food. Carol, bless her heart, went over to Natural Grocers and got some
Yay.
amazing looking fruit and salad, and we have pizza, which she's cooking in there, so please give her tons of kudos for all the work she's doing in there. Do we wish to eat in here or over there? It is cooler over there, but there's more space in here. So if you'd rather eat in the library, raise your hand.
Well, the only thing is that Ron has a class at 1:30.
Oh, today's, that's right, it's the first, right?
Yeah.
First Sunday.
So we should
Never
set
mind,
up.
we have to be in here.
Yeah.
We have to be in here, never mind that. And I think that Matt and Anna are both traveling, so also note that the schedule's changing for teaching. I'll be teaching the next 2 Sundays, for those of you that want to run the other direction or warning. Yeah, have I missed anything now?
No, I think that's
Ron,
it.
as you said, Ron is teaching today at 1:30, and darn, he sent it to me, but I don't remember what he's teaching. 1:30 to about 3:30-ish. And then lots of food, so we need to set up some tables out here. And any other announcements that anyone thinks we should know? Right, yay!
Thank you.